Welcome to Season 12 of the Prosthetics and Orthotics Podcast. This is where we connect with experts in the field, patients who use these devices, physical therapists, and the vendors who help bring it all together. Our mission remains the same, to share stories, tips, and insights that help improve patient outcomes. Tune in and join the conversation. We're glad you're here and hope it's the highlight of your day.
Hello, everyone. My name's Joris, and this is another episode of the Prosthetics and Orthotics Podcast with Brent Wright. How you doing, Brent?
Hey, Joris. I'm doing well. You know, I'm a little jealous, but okay. I love your articles that you do for 3dprint.com. You know, I do feel like my disdain for Frankfurt, you know, comes from what you write. I mean, you describe it so well, and I'm like, the only reason why I would go there is to go to Formnext. And but the other thing, you know, I love your perspective on, hey, these are some new things here. This is a recycled of old things. So I really wanted to just kind of get your insight onto what you saw as new stuff, technology in general, because we have a lot of listeners that it's not necessarily for O&P, right? But it's like, okay, so where is this technology going? And I know that there was a lot of metal stuff that came out, so I'd love to touch on that. But just a general sense, the excitement, the attitude. It appears that there were some independent innovator type of things, people bootstrapping some of this technology. I think it's, from what I saw, some very interesting thing, but and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the overall tone of the conference was, hey, this is how you get stuff done in the commercial sense. We are showing you some new tech, but it's really focusing on how do we go from this, like, hey, I can print tchotchkes to, hey, I can print 10,000 of something and actually make some money on it.
I think that's really a succinct way of expressing it. I mean, for the uninitiated, Formnext is the biggest trade show in additive manufacturing 3D printing. It's in Frankfurt every year, has been for about 10 years. And it's the unique thing is there's also Rapid. There's also every once in a while, every 2 years or so, we're part of IMTS as well. And there's other regional shows. The difference of Formnext is that's the only place where you see everybody from China and Japan, but also guys coming from New Zealand and the States. So, and it's the only show where, like AMUG, for example, will see the guys on the concrete floor. The guys are actually running the machines. And totally, if you want to buy a machine, AMUG is a great place to go. Additive Manufacturing Strategies, the show I co-host and do with 3dprint.com is more of the, it's all the business people talking about the strategy. And Formnext, you see all those people, so that's a big difference. And definitely I don't know if you're like an O&P person. If you're an O&P person, you live near Frankfurt, you should totally go because you can get free tickets and you can also see everything, right? All the parts in one, like 4 big halls. So definitely if you're starting a 3D printing related business, I would 100% urge you to go at one point, because it's different in our industry than in the IT or something. You can actually learn an awful lot from handling parts, from looking at parts, and there's an awful lot of application. I think that's the one thing you call up. You managed to see while not even attending the event, which is about like the application stuff. So we used to be a very machine-centric show. This is the VX4000. It does cubic inches per minute or whatever, And now it's then people use applications. So like actually a part illustrating what can be done with the machine kind of as a demo thing. And now it's much more like, this is Alstom, and they make this for the front of the train. And this is what they did to this part to make it work and make a fire retardant because it's the front of a train, right? So that's the kind of stuff. So it's much more serious. On the downside, there were less stands than last year. So they had to like cut, like, basically like large swathes of the floor were unoccupied on either side. Never nice. But everybody was, and there were less tire kickers, I guess. People with stars in their eyes didn't know what they're doing, but it was much more serious business stuff. So I completely agree with you there. It's much more like, the projects were bigger and the machines were, well, maybe it's not less revolutionary, but they were actually suited to purpose. Like AOS made an Onyx machine, which actually is like all the upgrades you would want if you're running the old M400, their DMLS machine. So rather than do something really crazy with 12 lasers, there are also people like that, they're making the machine like, okay, in line with whatever you wanted in the next kind of level, let's say. There was usually the joke at Formnext is that, the only thing that is there's never any innovation, but somehow we do get ahead. And this year there was a lot of innovation. Like there was a lot of really exciting stuff. So one of the things, for example, is Materialise Bricks. Materialise is a big software company, and they have Bricks, which is kind of like, they're gonna hate me for this, but it's like Grasshopper for additive. So you can use Magix, which is the main tool for planning builds and metal printing, definitely in a lot of other LPBF as well. 3matic, which is a research tool, and a bunch of other Materialise tools. You can use them in a kind of declarative way, or not in a kind of declarative way. You can use little blocks to kind of make your very own workflows. So you could make a scanned apart workflow for OMP, for example. You can make a workflow to price parts for medical for OMP, but then price them differently when Judy is on her maternity leave, or when Raul goes on vacation or something like that. So you can make really very specific workflows for your company, and that to me is a very exciting tool from a business intelligence perspective as well, to let people create costing tools for them. So I think that's really very exciting. But that's very inside baseball, I think. But it's still very, very exciting. And I don't know if they're going to use this to make affordable tools. I hope they use it to make affordable, really specific tools for people. If you're a 2-person shop, then a cost running out of a thing is very different than if you're a 20-person shop. And if you hate doing something, you could even cost it in a certain way. I think make something more expensive because you have to do it or whatever. So there's a lot of stuff there that we don't do that we could, and that can happen more intelligent. So that's my favorite thing. The other thing that was really amazing, there's a company called Scheffler Special Machinery, and they have a recoder, a multiple drum recoder. So LPBF, laser powder bed fusion, is a process there. You take powder, usually one uniform powder, and you take a laser over that powder and it hardens it. That being like TI, titanium, or other TI-64, usually, or other materials. That part has to be attached to the build volume or the build platform, and will probably kind of rip itself apart. So you have to generate supports to keep that part in place, and you can print that. This is very difficult if you're just trying to make one prototype. It's probably not going to work. But if you want to make millions of teeth, right, or millions of suppressors, or millions of aerospace brackets or whatever, that's the technology to do it in metal. It's costly, but it's very detailed, very precise. And there's a lot of post-processing steps as well. Now, what Scheffler's done is add 3 drums to this that mix material. Basically, one's kind of like a support, I guess, and 2 materials you can mix in. So this allows you to have, for example, gradient parts, right, where you're changing the performance of the part at every single voxel, if you will, every single location, or part, or region even, or layer. And you can just change properties in ways that we really don't assume. That we haven't really thought before. So there's a company called Amnovis, which, for example, what they were doing is they're using an implant made of 2 different, so this is an orthopedic implant, made of 2 different titaniums. So what that means is you can use one titanium for strength and the other one for basically kind of like being safer, I guess, than the other one. And you can make thinner implants, for example, and you can make that implant earlier. You can do that implant earlier. What you could also do, for example, is what they showcased at the show, is that you could use one implant with a softer titanium screws, or harder implant with softer screws, or whatever way to make it easier to remove that implant. If you're doing a mold, you can make a mold with copper and steel and stuff, so have a really hard wearing material, stellite, I don't know, and then copper to make more conductive underneath. There's lots of crazy, crazy stuff we haven't thought of doing with this, but this is really a very, and it's also not easy to do this, but this is like a really big frontier for us. And they're really moving ahead on this. And they're also working on magnesium as well, which is like this lasers and magnesium I'm about to say don't mix, but perhaps it's better to say mix very well. I
finally got that one. I was a little slow on the uptake, but yeah.
No, I wouldn't want to work there, but I think it's great that they're doing it for us. But anyway, so that's great. Because like you're talking about more, implants that might actually have a really interesting role in the body or the skeletal system and stuff. So that's also really exciting. And that was just one company, right? So there's a lot of that going on where people are just innovating outright, essentially. This is a company called another innovation, which I thought is called Almatis, I think, where basically people made an investment casting machine. So investment casting is a process been going on for 5,000 years. And it's a super multi-step process. We're making a mold and you're investing in it and you're breaking it and all stuff. And they basically made a machine to do this, a desktop machine for doing this. And it's just like a completely insane kind of setup, And we don't know if it'll work, but that could be a really different way of looking at making metal parts. Another thing, Axtra 3D is an SLA vendor. Axtra, what they have is they have really good layer definition, really good corners and sharp corners, if you will. So what they showcased is just combining that with an injection molding machine. Now, that's really obvious. A lot of people have been doing this, but they now offer a kind of benchtop injection molder with their SLA or VAT polymerization printer for you to be able to make injection molds in-house. So they're just going a little bit further, Whereas Formlabs, of course, was there showcasing some new resins, some new tougher materials. That kind of approach, that Formlabs driven kind of like everything is perfect when it works together, is kind of being ate by other people and learn some more functional type products. Meanwhile, another big thing on the show was affordable metal printers. So these LPBF machines we talked about before could be $1 million or something. Now, One Click Metal for a couple of years, we've been working on machines around 100, 180K. And they showed a much more refined printer. But what's also happening is that there's about 10 other vendors also making cheap LPBF printers. Some of them, Exact Metal's been doing this for a while. But other ones are new. And there's a Swiss company, there's a Basque one, there's a whole bunch of them. And they're all making kind of like really easy, kind of semi-carpet floor LPBF printers. Now, LPBF is a very complicated process. It's very difficult to master. There's probably a lot of steps afterwards. But making that more affordable really means that apart from the biggest companies on earth using metal 3D printing, now all of a sudden, a relatively small machine shop could consider it. And we know we've had a bunch of people on the podcast that use like these LPBF parts for fingers and for complicated devices and for molding and all this stuff. So this is kind of relevant for O&P as well. And it becomes like now it's like 180K and then maybe 240, 250. You have the equipment you need, or most of the equipment you need. And that's already kind of a much more, it's still going to be a big investment for a lot of people. A lot of people aren't going to be able to do it, but still much more affordable than I think we had before, So that was a big deal as well. The other big deal is just the march of Bambu. Bambu and Proofs had the busy stands, but also Snapmaker had a busy stand, and Creality. There's a lot of people crowding around there looking at their latest innovations. And we're really seeing that percolate through the industry where, before it was like desktop printers are a toy. And there's still a lot of people that say that, it's a toy for making trinkets, And what we're trying to do is tell them, no, they're coming for you. These guys are hyper aggressive. They're making a really amazing machine and is getting better all the time. So these machines are not only marching into your living room, but also money more into indirect parts or parts like, jigs and fixtures and stuff. But also on top of that, they'll be making, they're making more end use parts as well. And I think, lower cost, higher speed, they're really reliable. So this is something where in our market, it's going to, things are going to collide essentially at one point. Those are the things I saw, and there's a ton of stuff. It's really difficult to kind of distill out 6 things from. It's a week, right? It's a week. It starts on the Monday. There's a bunch of meetings with the install base or training or that kind of thing, and then it goes up until Friday. So that's kind of like it's kind of very difficult to kind of like see it all in one go.
Yeah, I mean, the metal stuff is always interesting to me, and I love, I think they even showed One Click Metal does a lot of stuff with our friends from Point Designs and Chris Baschuk, and some pretty cool stuff there. We don't have time to get into it, but we do need to devote an episode of the podcast. So some codes came out for Medicare for Point Designs, and I'm not trying to derail this whole conversation, but it ended up not being super favorable. So it's just government at its finest, and not understanding innovation and that sort of thing. So I got to dig into that a little bit more because that is just like this kind of breaking news, I guess. And there were a couple other codes that came out with some other innovative products that just did not turn out the way that it should have. And it's just kind of weird. So we'll have to dive into that. I'd love to get your feedback on that. But
totally, dude. That would be really. I'd be really excited to look at. Oh, another thing I do want to point out that was really, really cool is there's always been tooling for molds has always been like a big deal, and I mentioned the extra thing. But now we're seeing a ton more tooling examples in polymer tooling, like tooling made on like a Formlabs, but also lots and lots of tooling made in metal for injection molding, relatively low run injection molding, packaging, medical packaging, all this kind of stuff. That was like it was really very very high quality, high precision type of stuff where they're getting better cycle times from 3D printed molds. And then also, now with all the bit of chaos and stuff, people are looking much more towards making these molds better. I saw a styrofoam mold tool, which I'd never seen before. I'm not entirely sure if that'll work, but hey, at least somebody's thinking about it. We saw mold tools for latex. We saw mold tools for two-component stuff. Mold tools for polyurethane and for all sorts of relevant type of things. So that's something for all the inventors out there. I think making a kind of like, if you need a mold for, especially for like a polymer mold kind of thing, or tooling or insert or something like that, that's actually maybe a lot more affordable than you think to get that first, print the first 100 maybe, but the first 500 to 5,000 are now much more accessible now because a lot of people are doing work on that. So I think that was very encouraging as well.
Did you see anything? So I'm just trying to think of like the big companies. So you've got Formlabs. I think they released some new materials, but not really any new machines, right? And then
no, not that I know. They did a new tough resins. And I think they have a new washing curing thing for the big machine.
Because man, SLA stuff is nasty. Like I just in some ways I'm like not interested, but there are some parts that are pretty amazing. And the extra stuff, did you see the stuff that I had designed there? The stuff that was in the blue material for the prosthetic flexible inners. Did you see that at the extra booth? Those guys are in Charlotte, so I've got to know them pretty well. And so we're trying to play with a few things to see if there's anything that makes sense for.
Well, that's cool, dude. I really like them, and I think it's really cool what they're doing.
Yeah. And then HP released an FDM printer or white label FDM printer from, what is it? The
3D
Gents. Yeah.
I don't know.
So I kind of get it, but it's a whole nother beast.
No, I think somehow it makes sense. You're selling to the people that you're already selling to, and you're already building out those relationships. I think a couple of years ago, if they would have, like, for example, bought Ultimaker or something, like taken that to the next level, I think that would have been really advantageous. I think now, I'm not sure. And if I would have been able to work with someone, I would have worked with Mini Factory, frankly. I think that's a much better machine if you're looking at the high temperature material extrusion machines. I think that's the superior solution that works better. 3D Gents was an okay machine, but they never really found out how to play well with others. Mm-hmm. So they never really kind of, how they tell you in kindergarten, put it on the report card always. Mm-hmm. That ends up being really important in life for a lot of people. And they just were never very good at that. And that really meant that they suffered until the point where they didn't have the revenue to maintain that as a top tier system. It'd be interesting to see if they can put money in it and if they can grow it, something like that. But still, I do think, like most of the industry, they're kind of bamboo roadkill more than anything else. And then the USP there is that it's a high temperature machine, so it can do peak.
Yeah.
Ultim.
Yeah. And so some of those high value stuff. So it's not like, yeah. And the price point actually, didn't seem to be like, for not to be like HP-ish, like $100,000 price point. Okay. Yes, it's an FDM, but it's not stupid.
It's not, but you can get a Mini Factory for that. I'd always get, if you were like Airbus, I'd be like, get a Mini Factory, right?
Yeah.
And if you were like not Airbus, I'd be like, get 100 Bambu Labs.
Sure.
know?
Yeah.
I think one of the things is really interesting. So I read a lot of articles, right? And sometimes people miss them, and then they're like, and then I'm like, no, guys, this is important. And then I wrote this article about wiglets. I don't know if you saw this. Oh, okay. So I saw this article. So the weirdest thing, so you meet tons of people like this. So you're talking from breakfast until like way into the night every day. The same, probably your OMP shows, same thing. And people just sometimes are like, because you're a journalist, they always kind of like reference stuff like, oh, I read that was good or something. And this year, the one thing that everyone was talking about was this Wigless article. And I'm like, look, I wrote 10,000 words on BinderJet, please. Please, I spent like weeks on that. But in this case, they were talking about Wigless. So Wigless is a company, and they're in the States, and they have, right now they should have 3,100 Bambu printers. And they're making little articulated toys with color mixing. So the multiple color little articulated toys.
What you're talking about now. Yeah.
And that was a wake up. For some reason, we knew this already, right? So the problem is we've been hinting at this for several years. That there's be saying, hey, there's in Shenzhen, there's people using hundreds of printers to make housings for consumer electronics and all this kind of stuff, So we've been hinting at this, but none of the guys wanted to go public with it. They're just like, no, I'm good, thanks. And all these guys are like, yeah, they do B2B, and they're known, like in Shenzhen, they're known, and that's it. They don't care. So now all of a sudden these guys are posting stuff on Instagram. That was a unique thing. There's other bigger print farms, by the way. I think this is important to know, but I can't talk about them because I can't reference them, in any concrete way. But still, 3,100 printers it's 2,700, and they're going to get 500 new ones one of these days. And that's still a huge wake up call for people. And you still had people probing, like, yeah, but it's just for toys. And I'm like, no, they're coming for you, dude. They're coming for all of us. But anyway, so that shows you that you could manufacture the toys sell for, I think, $290 or $245. That's it, plus the wholesaler. They are wholesalers. So there's the toy store margins on top of that, maybe even some distributor margin as well. So they're the tiny articulated toys we all would print for people we know, maybe these little axolotls and stuff. And these guys are just making money off of it, which is the craziest thing in the world. But that just illustrates as well that worlds colliding, these industrial people kind of getting in contact with these really ambitious desktop companies.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a good segue into what I really want to talk about. Like, it's good to have the Formnext update.
Yeah.
But I get a lot of questions. So, every time at the end of the year, people have money to spend if they're small businesses.
Okay.
And they want to do something new for 2026. Even though I understand it's only, a month and a half away, and the difference between December 31st and January 1st is day, right? But there's something about starting a new year, having goals and all that stuff. So what I'd love to dive in today, because these are questions that I get all the time, is I'm not doing any 3D printing right now. How do I start? And so I don't know how you want to work it out. We'll just work it out. Let's start with, a lot of people think that it's just the printer, right? Well, you've got to send something to the printer. So maybe let's just chat a little bit about some things to look at scanning wise and software wise, and then kind of work through the actual process of finally getting a 3D print on the other side.
Okay. My opinion, I'd never start with a scanner. I think it's the most difficult part of the whole thing. and I know you're a huge Einscan fanboy, and they seem to work really well. But I just think that's just it's an investment, and it's an investment in time that is insane. Would you start with a scanner though? Or?
Well, so, and this is just the clinician in me. So for prosthetics and orthotics, we just say shape acquisition, cast, whatever, is the foundation of what you do. And I think you have to start with that in mind. How are you going to get the shape into the computer? And it's come a long way. You have the cell phone scanners, you have I saw Creality kind of get into the game. You've got the structure sensors that attach to iPads, and then you have the more expensive Einstar sort of thing. So I think it is an important thing to talk about, because I think without a scanner, it's hard to do all the rest of the stuff. Sure, you can outsource that, but then you're also outsourcing your margin. And I think that is really what is key. If you can, to me, the design is the most important part. So, and that's where you can get the most margin, because that's the specialty. So like, if you send me a part ready to print, that price is going to be different than if I need to do work and make it print. And so, but that's the difference. Is, to me, the design and scanning aspect is where the margin is, and that's where people should first start. So I think maybe we have a discussion on.
That's interesting. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense. But to me, it's like, I would have agreed with you a couple of years ago, I think. Now, the difference is that I think it would be really cool to start with training, if you could find the appropriate training. And the next question is there appropriate training? There's no. right. So in the ideal world, I think actually you would want to start with the training just to see, what does work. If there was like a cheap training somewhere. But the thing is, then I would say, you know what? Start trying to use an outsourced scanning, use an outsourced design, use an outsourced 3D printing service to just deliver these parts and see what's possible. Mm-hmm. And then buy like a cheap 3D printer to just understand the process. Mm-hmm. Only after you buy, so that's the first thing I buy is training. The second thing I buy is like a cheap printer.
Okay.
And then I probably would say, look, for most of the people, like then work into the scanning, still outsource your design, because that's hard, man. What you do is on the design stuff, that's actually hard.
Yeah.
It actually takes you thousands of hours, right? Yeah. So, and then I would be like, I'd still then outsource my printing. And I think first about outsourcing printing before I even think about outsourcing the scan DFM portion.
Now that's interesting. It's an interesting take, for sure, because, and I don't disagree with you. So, let's just chat real quick on so somehow you're going to spend money somehow on shape capture. So whether it's a cast, whether you take a cast and you don't want to have anything to scan, you're still going to have to send that cast somewhere. You're going to have to send it UPS, DHL, FedEx.
But I wouldn't even start with that, right? I would start with like jigs and fixtures.
Oh, so you're saying like almost like just tooling, like how do you make your surroundings better?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm doing in my house. That's what everybody does, dude. Okay. So once you have the printer, then try to print just whatever stuff, your kids, whatever. And then later on gravitate into doing a little bit of design stuff, a little bit of doing it. And then I would learn through doing like tools, like what is a tool to first, organize your tools, right? Do some poka-yoke stuff where you have a special tray for one procedure with all of the tools you need for that procedure. Right. So in advance already before the patient's coming, if you have everything in that one tray, do I have my tape? Do I have, then I would do like, do I have a fixture to put this thing to make it easier? And I would go that way. I wouldn't make the devices for the patient straight off the bat. I would just go like the stuff around the office to make my life easier. Okay.
Well,
a beer can holder while I do my circular saw.
The beer can holder with a timer on it, so when it's after 5.
Exactly. And I'd start with that because that is establishes value. There's no risk. And you can do it with a desktop system quite easily.
Okay.
And also, if you don't design a fixture correctly, then I don't know, your scissors don't fit. They fall to the floor, and you end up using with these things like tolerances are important. And then the next time you want to make a hinge and you can't make a hinge, and you find somebody else's hinge, you try to steal their hinge. And then that doesn't work. And then you find out about clearances, and you find out that the clearance is different and different material. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right.
So I think it's a nice, playful way to learn, and you're not thinking if Mrs. Jones is going to fall down the stairs immediately.
I actually love that. So yeah. I think that should be the official position of the Prosthetics and Orthotics podcast.
Awesome.
Is buy a printer first. You don't have to know anything, and then create your environment in a better way using the technology. And at that point, you have no risk, and you are making yourself more efficient. And let's say, your tooling saves 5 minutes out of the day. It's a lot of value there.
Exactly.
a lot of value, and it made you more organized, or you don't lose things, or you label something for a patient in a different way. Okay.
So I think of this as a
going to hold firm on this, Joris, but you completely changed my world.
It's great. Okay, but
I don't know how I feel about that, actually.
No, think about it. Think about it. You don't have to. This doesn't have to be definitive. We can change this, like, next time we can think about it. But think about the logic of just having trays, right? You have a poke-yoke type of tray where you have one of, I'm preparing for Mrs. Jones, and Mrs. Jones has to have thing X. And for thing X, I have to collect all these things, or I can get my assistant to do it, or I have to do it. I'll do it when I'm on the phone. That's another thing, this parallel processing thing we're all doing now. I'll do it while I'm on the phone. And then I have all the things. I don't have to, like, make her wait while I try to find the tape, right? Which is what, if I would be the worst processor in the world. I would always be like, oh my God, wait a minute. I have to get the water for the cast. Oops, that'd be horrible. But then also having a second tray to just put the stuff you've used in it, so you know exactly where you are and how far you go. That kind of stuff is really simple. If you make the tray and it kind of doesn't work, that's okay. And you can make it better. And I think it's easier. But I think it's really interesting that I think when we did a similar question like this a couple of years ago, and both of us were like, "Yeah, don't buy a machine right away. It sucks." Yeah. So what I think is interesting about this approach is that you can iteratively make your own workplace better. And like you said, if you save a couple minutes a day, that's going to really add up to real value to you. And the other thing is, I think it's interesting that 5 years or so, when we were doing this, whenever we started doing this thing, this podcast thing, we were actually actively telling people not to buy machines. Right. And now the machines have gotten so cheap and so good that it's okay, like, to tell people to buy machines. Whereas previously we were just saying, like, too many people buy machines too early and it just doesn't work and it's just a waste of money. And now it's like, if we're looking at the cheaper end of things, well, I actually think you should probably buy a machine quite early in the whole cycle. What about you?
Yeah. So, I mean, now that you've changed my mind on that, which I love, and I don't, so I think here is the real question. Let's just get down to brass tacks on this is, well, what machine are you going to buy? And do you go the cheapest? Do you go the China one? Do you go the kind of open source Czech one that has a U.S. manufacturing plant? Are you concerned about data? Are we over concerned about data with these Chinese machines? I don't know. That sort of thing. So I'll start on my opinion.
Okay.
I think you buy the cheapest Bambu labs you can buy, which is either an A1 Mini or an A1. Both are going to be sub 400, and on a Black Friday, I'm sure you can probably get one that's sub 200. And you just start. I mean, I have an A1 Mini actually at my feet right now, and I rarely have had a failed print. And if I have a failed print, it's usually my fault. I designed something that's not right, or I'm pushing the machine a little bit harder than what I should. But I'll tell you, like, even in Guatemala, I have 2 A1 Minis that I leave down there in the jungle of Guatemala, and they've been down there 2 years, and they start up every single time and print perfectly every single time. I actually didn't have a failed print this last trip. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And I'm printing GPU in the jungle of Guatemala. So that would be my suggestion. And it's just because they just work. Now, do I like the Prusas? Yes. But I would say that the ecosystem of Bambu sets you up to be successful right off the bat and without any knowledge. And so my thing is, and I would say Prusa's getting there, but you can always move to that machine because they've got a lot of cool things coming down the pike. But I want something that I don't have to fiddle with. And I've fiddled with printers since 2014, essentially. And if I never have to fiddle with another printer again, that would be great. And other than the vortex, like I do enjoy that, but now it's getting to the point where I'm not having to fiddle with that one that we're building right now. So that is my opinion. You buy the cheapest bamboo printer and you start printing stuff.
No, I think I'm inclined to agree with that. I think again, but this is for people who are listening to this, maybe new to this. This is kind of novel because it used to be like if you are a kid, you'd buy this printer. If you're a business, you'd buy that one. If you're a business that wants TPU, you buy another one. Right? And even with the bamboos in the beginning, I was like, it's great for everything except for TPU. For OMP is kind of a bit of a limiting thing. But I think, yeah, you're right. I think for most people, I would just say get a Bambu A1 Mini. If you don't like it, if it doesn't work for you, give it to your kid. They'll have fun with it, or
give it to a makerspace, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be fun.
And I love your point of don't print prosthetic stuff. Print stuff that's going to help you, and then learn the process a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
Yeah, and then there's okay. The other one thing is that if you know already that you're going to want to print silicone or conductive things or a mold, or if you're going to be if your end goal is to do something like or develop your own printer, or you do something with multiple material, you know what I mean? If your end goal goes outside the current paradigm, then I would get a Prusa.
Okay.
Like, because you could fiddle more with it. It could be your build platform for your new silicone printer, or you know what I mean?
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
So, and it'll actually let you control it more. Also, if you want to print for them, if you're thinking, I want 100 of these, then I also would start with a Prusa because you'll actually understand the mechanics of the system better.
Yeah. Well, and they're just more open on that stuff, I would say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you could change it to take, I don't know what, latex, or I don't know. You could do crazy stuff. If you want to put like a Viscotech nozzle on it and print like a liner material, you know? Or use it as a moisture state. So the much more experimental program, and Prusa, the MKs are still really good printers as well. So that's thing. But yeah, it's the A1s are just simpler.
Yeah.
And no matter what your level is, and even if you want to be a casual user later on, I think that's a good thing. And yeah, how much did you get them for? Like they're like,
I mean, I think it was
with the discounts, it's like $200 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a price where before you could get a printer, then you would just like, but I wouldn't like, for example, this is the difference between a couple of years ago is you get a printer, but you wouldn't leave the house. I have a print. I need to wait for it to finish to go to the park.
I got to make sure my house doesn't burn down, that sort of thing. And now it is not the position of the Prosthetics and Orthotics podcast that you just leave your printers going. I mean, so your mileage may vary, but anyway,
and definitely you don't hack them or something. But now they're much more reliable. I mean, just the idea, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
totally.
we've kind of landed on the first thing. This is how you get started, and I love that. So the next part is okay. So you are getting better and better. I think in my opinion, you find the one thing that's kind of a bottleneck in your facility, and you outsource the design and print of that. What do you think about that?
Sure. That's super good. That's a super good way to start. I like that a lot.
Okay, so in my opinion, so for instance, and I know you're a big fan of the adjustable sockets. Well, those are highly technical sockets to make digitally. You are not learning how to do that your first go. The cool thing about outsourcing that aspect is not only are you going to get your reimbursement better, but you're going to free up your technician's time. And I think that's a super important thing to do. So you're not only you're making more money outsourcing, which is fantastic.
Yep, totally agree. I think that's a really good.
So
I really like
outsource that everything. So send your mold, send the test socket, whatever that fits, and go from there. Okay.
I don't know if there's reliable partners for that, but that just seemed to be the right way to get started. I mean, if it works for you, why invest the capital? You know what I mean? I think there's a real benefit in buying your first scanner, maybe, but definitely your first cheap printer for a couple $100 to get used to this technology, to actually understand what it is, to actually understand how you can make, because you could use it in a really crazy way as well, right? That no one thought of. Mm-hmm. If going forward, you understand that once you understand the technology, once you understand it's possible on the desktop and with buying machines, and if you can just outsource it and it works, well, then it works. Great. Yeah. Spend your money elsewhere.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. This actually came up recently, and I'm pretty sure this guy probably does not listen to the podcast. He is very heavily opinionated, and if he does, fantastic. He'll remember the story. I'll anonymize it. Anyway, they just want to go all in on 3D printing. And I think that's the wrong thing. Like, I think 3D printing, especially in O&P, is a journey. You cannot go out and spend your way to convert your whole office immediately. Would you disagree with that?
Yeah, I don't agree with you. I think the best example is, let's say you were doing this in 2023. Then you would ask us what printer to buy, and let's say you would have spotted the desktop print farm opportunity,
right?
Like these Wiglets dudes we were talking about. Then it would have been a big risk to take on Bambu, and you would have been vindicated, unless, of course, you needed to make TPU, which does not work very well on the other machines, on the older Bambu machines, right? So you would have been stuck with a lot of machines that are making TPU far slower and far less quality than if you were doing it on a different system. And in fact, I still get, I think, better quality TPU stuff off of the Prusa research machines, you know? So it's like, before you know what you're doing, you need to know what material and what design file and where you're getting it and how you're printing it. So it's kind of like, would you buy a car before knowing what you're going to do with it? Oh, I bought a Ferrari. We have 6 kids.
Right.
It's a similar kind of thing. You have to figure out what you're doing. So I would always spend as little money as possible and try and figure out first what problem you're solving for other people and what you want to start making. And then, I mean, it wouldn't make sense to say, I want to be big in cars or I want to be big in music. What music? Are you going to produce rap songs and also classical music? You know what I mean? You need to know where you're going in order to learn the skills, meet the people, and develop the organization to tackle that problem. And even in what we see, for example, in additive, there's huge differences between product businesses and service businesses, first off. There's huge differences between people who are just doing services, as in they take in all sorts of files, and contract manufacturers are doing the same part over and over again. And there's huge differences between people that make their own product, then you through 3D printing, and those that work for others. And there's huge difference in types of machines that make sense for all those people. So, if you're looking at doing a service, then low CapEx is super important for you. But if you're looking at doing your own product, then maybe you would like to then make less margin, but have fewer failed builds and fewer post-processing time, because it uses less of your people, and then you make a better product in the end or something like that. There's just a lot of different investment decisions that could be affected by the product. And if you're involved in something that's a tool or something that's an end-use medical device, there's going to be a lot of qualities are going to make cost of quality is going to be very, very different for you. And it also means what kind of personality are you? Mm-hmm. If you're, it takes a particular type of personality to want to be a contract manufacturer. That person with that manufacturing mindset, day in, day out. And I think for a lot of people, it's kind of thing where everybody kind of wants to be a beer brewer until you find out that beer brewing is really cleaning and a really process-driven kind of organization. Right. You're not just putting let's put some extra coriander in here. No, that's not it. That's not it at all. It's one day of the whole beer brewing experience. The other 10,000 days is just cleaning.
Right.
It's let's figure out what you're doing,
Good point. All right. So let's say we've established that you buy a printer, you do this stuff for your office, you outsource a high value product that's very complex to free up your time and makes you more money. My next step would be okay, what is something that I do a lot of? And I know I could bring costs down. And so my mind automatically goes to test sockets, specifically transtibial or below the knee check sockets. Makes up probably 70 to 80% of all the amputations that we fit are these the below the knee amputees. And so if you're able to do that in-house, there's a lot of benefits to do that. And it doesn't all come down to saving time and money, even though you will. So for instance, a test socket that is made out of PETG is going to cost you about $5 in material costs once you have your printer to print that. Currently, If you outsource that, you're talking about $175 probably. You now have a little bit, and your reimbursement from an insurance company, let's just call it $250 to $300, something like that, is so your spread, your profitability, it moves the needle pretty significantly to bring that in house. Now, you mentioned it's hard to modify digitally and that sort of thing, and this is where I would say over the last month, my opinion has definitely changed
That's interesting.
on this idea of modification specifically for transtibial sockets. So I'm just going to give you a for instance.
Yeah. Because it used to be that was finicky and you needed to be skilled, and it was annoying as hell.
And
we're talking to people that are spending like what 45 minutes on that or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
or like if you do it by hand, you're at plaster and you got rasps and sand screen and all the drywall tools and all that stuff, and you're getting all messy and all that stuff. That's, to me, that is nonsense. And the other thing that's very interesting is when you talk to clinicians, and these are experienced clinicians, these are not just out of school, and you say, okay, walk me through what you do to a model. And then you hear the same thing. I reduce 3%. I modify this in and this in. And it's like, okay, so if you're taking a cast and you're reducing 3% every time, does it ever occur to you, why am I reducing 3% every time? How do I reduce nothing? How do I get to 0%? Which leads me to, and we've talked to Johan Weigel from Stuttgart with the AirFit system. I don't know if you saw the stuff that I did in Guatemala. I fit 5 patients with the AirFit system, and these patients are super difficult to fit. And literally, I put the cast on, I pumped up to a specific, it wasn't even like 0.8 bar on a paddleboard pump that is manual. I don't even know, is it correct? Probably it's somewhere in that range. I did not have to touch a thing. Literally, we poured those down, I smoothed it up just to get some of the rough edges off. And that is it. So
nice.
When you talk about how do you actually save time, and I know this will seem like heresy to a lot of people, here is what I would say. You buy an AirFit, you use it, you find a scanner that can scan the inside of that AirFit cast. You automate the socket design so you don't even have to know how to make sockets, and you print it in-house.
Wow. Why not outsource it? Why not outsource like all the difficult stuff?
Well, what is there that's difficult? It's all automated. It's like, so all you have to do is scan it. You know where the landmarks are, and so you just have to put in an alignment, and the software generates everything for you.
Nice. And what would you use for the software?
So
Geomagic or what?
We haven't had him on yet, and I want to have him on. His name's Jack Buchanan. He has and I know you love Mesh Mixer, but there are a lot of downsides to Mesh Mixer.
No,
but
downsides to Mesh Mixer.
He has a Mesh Mixer-like program, and he probably will hate that I said it that way, but let's just call it's a very simple modification software that includes measurements, so circumferences, perimeters, that sort of thing, and alignment tools. So you know where your kneecap is, right? And you know where the end of the leg is. So with those two things, it automatically aligns it, and then you just push a button that says "Create my socket."
Beautiful.
And
it's expensive, or
no? I mean, he's doing a per click deal on it, and he's still working out the pricing model, but it works.
Okay.
Like I would,
but that could be. I like that you've changed on this. What I really like is that it's really contrast to the interests of advanced 3D, what you've just told people to do.
So
this is what you're sometimes like you're radically honest, and I love that. But I love that about you. But now you're like, you should really take up and listen if somebody tells you to do something that will like potentially negatively impact their own business.
Right. Well, here's the beauty though. So I don't know if you saw the thing that I did with the guy that he came in on Sunday. He got here around 5. I cast him with the AirFit system. We modified right away. And then we put it into the printer that night. And and then the next morning at noon, and I had an hour and a half drive to get there, we're fitting him. So literally in less than 24 hours, we're fitting him with an adjustable socket. And why
is that you only did that there because this guy had to drive, had to travel 14 hours to get home, right?
Yeah. Coming in from Texas. And we had a study that we were doing with the university. So was it stressful? Yes. I mean, it was a lot of work to get that. But the cool thing is that the printer printed overnight. We harvest the parts in the morning and we fit the device, and then we went and did the study.
I like harvest. I've never thought of it as like a harvest.
Oh, yeah.
Now I'm going to look at my printer every morning and look at the harvest like I have an apple tree in my living room.
So all that to say is it went so well, and he's a very complex limb. Adding the adjustability, which is what we bring to the table, people are going to change in volume throughout the day. Doesn't matter how mature their limb is or whatever. Having that adjustability is key. And so, but what's cool is that if you do that and do your check socket, make sure everything fits, and then you can outsource the actual definitive socket that needs to be done. So you've lowered your exposure, financial exposure, and time, and then you are now outsourcing your device. And so to me, and that covers like 80% of your practice for prosthetics. And now you don't have to learn how to modify in like a Geomagic freeform. You don't have to, you're in the digital space without much work. And so I want to touch on scanners real quick for that. Mm-hmm. So I know that there's a lot. So you've got the structure scanners. I'm going to lump them all together. Structure and the cell phone scanner and the scanning app and that sort of thing. They're all like sub $1,000. And then if in the same breath as that, there's the Einstar, which is part of the Shining 3D portfolio. That's a sub $1,000. The software is free that goes with it, so it's a one-time deal. It's an okay scanner. I think it works fine, and for what we do, I don't know that it really gets the inside of these casts. But if you play your cards right, maybe you scan the outside and reduce the thickness of the cast, and you get in the ballpark. I think that's a fine way to do it. It's not the way that I would prefer to do it, but if you're really strapped for cash, that's the way I would go. Then the next level up is the Einscan H2. It's around $5,000. It gets you a lot of things. And, when I think about all the stuff that you were talking about, prototyping and potentially reverse engineering or just quickly making something, that would allow you to, say, scan, part of a workbench or a drawer or something, and then make something very quickly from that. So I think that's interesting, but it would provide...
would you, if it's my first scanner, would you say get the cheap one?
So it to me, it all depends on what you want to do. So like, to me I only want to buy one scanner that will do everything. And that scanner, and I want to spend less than
that's $5,000, dude. Yeah, okay.
Well, I want to spend less than $10,000. This is the keystone of how I'm going to build my practice. And you got to remember that for O&P, it's been, not too long ago, 10 years ago, it was $60,000 for a very basic laser scanner. So when we're talking about $10,000 in a scanner that's going to age well and age with your practice well and can do everything, the one that sticks out to me is the ArtTech Eva.
Wow. Okay.
And it's a great scanner.
That's like saying like you can go to... It's like we're jumping up in price here to like above most Toyotas.
But here's the thing is, people, let's just say 10 years ago, they were spending $60,000 for a scanner and $150,000 for a carver. We're not even talking 3D printer. And so you're $215,000 in, and you're still having to use foam blanks as consumables.
And the software is horrible.
And the software is, $20,000 a year, all this stuff. And so now we've taken all that down and said, hey, buy an ArtTech Eva that's light years ahead of everything else. use automation software that may cost you $20 a pop. And you're in a like an Bambu H2S that has 14 inches of Z, or Prusa Core XY. So the H2S is $1,200 and the Core XY is $3,000. So what we're saying is that for under $15,000, you can actually start doing stuff that's meaningful for your clinic. And I think that's a heck of a deal.
Okay. Okay. So a little nuance. I think we mean the same thing. If you have lots and lots of, if you're trying to make an app or a path, or you have 20 people in cars driving around everywhere, the comb method, right, with the phone and stuff, and the structure method are I think far superior, because you're not going to have to buy a ton of these devices, right? If you have a lot of clinics or you're going places, I just Artec in one lab, keeping there, great. Artec lugging it around, lugging it around to people's houses, gets me a bit nervous,
Sure.
That's one thing. I completely agree with you. Like, there's very little outside of scanning land that I would buy, apart from the Einscan, the whatever medium, and that's what I didn't really know which was the good medium kind of shining scanner, or Artec Eva, which is amazing. But it's a lot of money. It's like $40K, right? It was like, last time I checked, it was like $40K, the thing, right?
Which one?
The Artec.
The Artec Leo, yeah, it's like 35.
Oh Jesus, yeah, that's a lot of money, dude. That's I think.
But
couldn't you just try the Einscan first, and then?
So it's kind of like what you were talking about with the printer, though. Do you want to kind of figure it out as you go, or do you just want it to work? And to me, I just want it to work. Like, I don't want to finesse a subpar tool.
Yeah.
When I could spend a little bit more money and get it to work.
I'm always terrified of dropping it, though.
Oh, yeah.
Are you?
I've dropped it, and it cost me a lot of money. Yeah, I've cracked the case.
Oh wow, that's horrible, dude. Oh wow. But I think another thing. Okay, I'm still thinking about this. I don't know, but if we were trying to do differently, we were trying to have I'm going to scan and I'm going to outsource the file handling and the printing, right?
Yep.
Then I would definitely get an Artec.
Yeah.
Then I 100% agree. And if you're doing this thing with if we're light on if you want to make this as painless as possible, that is the way to go forward.
Yep.
And I think the technology is there. And a couple of years ago, you would have had the Artec, but you wouldn't have nearly had you still have to get Geomagic though, right? I think.
Well, no, I think you can use basic software to get going, and then outsource. So my thing is, let the clinicians do the clinical things, and let the designers do the designing things. And and then if you want to bring it all in house, make it part of your journey. Make it a 1-year plan. Hey, I'll bring Geomagic in, a little bit later on.
Okay.
So let's okay. So we've gone through a lot. Let's just kind of land the plane.
Yeah, totally.
I really see it as 3 tiers.
Yeah.
One is, how do you get started? And that is, buy a A1 Mini and do stuff for your office.
Totally.
I think we are there. 2 is, find something that's in your office that's a bottleneck that you can make some money in that you're not currently making. So I say adjustable sockets, and outsource that. And then 3 is, and you're still playing with your printer, right? So your printer doing stuff,
totally.
And you're learning some things along the way. And then number 3 is, do check sockets and automate the process. Use the tools to minimize the modifications needed, something like the AirFit. And so to do that, you need a scanner, and the budget is sub $1,000. You've got the Einstar, sub $1,000 and some fiddling. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Sub $1,000, the Einstar, we like Comb Scan, and some other iPhone, scanners out there, the structure sensor, that's all sub $1,000. You jump up to sub 5,000, and you're in the H2 realm. Actually, Shining 3D released a wireless one that's like 5,500.
Oh, yeah.
And I forget what the name
I wanted
of it
to
is.
look at that. I missed it.
It is, supposedly people like it. And so if you're wanting wireless, that might be a good option. And then for me, I would make the investment in a scanner that's going to, take me to the next level, do some things that like scanning the inside of casts. And Artec just does some great things with the technology. But full transparency, you do have to pay for their software. And here's the thing about paying for software is it gets better. So they actually now have a budget to continue making their software better, where like an Einscan or something that gives their software for free, you're kind of stuck until somebody's like, you know what, we should probably upgrade that a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well,
so that's the sub 10,000. And we've had Bo Helmrich on. So if you want an Artec Eva, reach out to Bo on that from Digitize Designs. And then you buy the printer to do check sockets. For $1,200, I think we can agree, Bambu H2C. If you want a little bit more volume and in a different ecosystem, or you're going to run multiple, the Prusa Core XY is a great platform for that. And you're $2,500, maybe almost $3,000. And
I have a Core 1L at home. It's really nice.
And you're like really doing it. And then the software is called O&P Cloud CAD. By Jack Buchanan. We're going to get him on and talk about that. So
totally, that would be super interesting, dude.
So what do you think? I mean, is that a pretty good and then obviously then you springboard from there. You can invest in more software and that sort of thing. But I think we both agree that this is a journey, and you just don't flip on the switch and it magically happens.
Yeah. No, totally. You have to be open to learning, open to investing in time. And I think I'm actually really surprised how much we did this a couple of years ago, and I'm actually really surprised how much our opinions have changed.
It has. It's really,
and that means things are getting better, because I never would have. Also on the software front, I would have always said, like, you're investing in a scanner and then you're stuck with all cleaning up stuff. It's not fun. But that also has gotten better. So I'm actually like, this actually does mean we're making progress in some crazy way. OMP industry and the digitization of the LMP industry continues as becoming easier and easier. So that's a really heartwarming, good news kind of thing, I think.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for changing my mind today. And man, my brain just hurts thinking about it right now. Actually, I mean, this conversation is actually in a good way kind of stretched. Like, hey, what do I actually believe? Where do we go? And we had no idea this is the path that we were going to take today. But I think we've landed on a pretty good path.
All right. Hey, thanks, Brent, for being here today.
Yeah, this was great.
And thank you for listening to another episode of the Prosthetics and Orthotics podcast. Have a great day.